I was born in the 1950s. I've been riding motorcycles for over 50 years. I've owned over 35 motorcycles, 14 of which have been Triumphs. I watch a lot of motorcycle reviews on YouTube in search of information on certain models. And one thing that's patently clear to me is that a lot of reviewers don't know what they're on about. Just riding a bike for an afternoon from a dealer will not tell you what you need to know about a new motorcycle. Other reviewers may have a bike for a matter of weeks lent to them by the manufacturer, and in those weeks they are unable to find anything substantial to criticize a bike for. The biggest criticism that you'll find is that the mirrors are too narrow for the reviewer's shoulders, or that the switchgear is more plasticky than the plasticky switchgear on other motorcycles that are also plastic. Now, the current situation in the United Kingdom at the moment is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to flag a test ride on a bike that you're interested in buying. Dealers often don't have demonstrators for the model that you want to test ride. Many of them don't have the facility to offer test rides on second-hand bikes. Consequently, most of the newer bikes being bought in the United Kingdom at the moment are bought without any sort of test ride. Of the 7 or 8 people that I ride with regularly, not one of them test rode the bike that they currently own. So don't underestimate the importance of these YouTube reviews. When a reviewer fails to point out a deficiency within a machine, it does us all a disservice. When you're looking for advice as to what bike to buy next, I would discount any first-time ride reviews. First-time ride reviews tend to be glowing. Modern machines are built to such a standard that it's difficult sometimes to find a deficiency on such a short ride. Only living with a machine for a period of months will highlight its deficiencies. It was after watching a number of reviews that I decided to buy a Triumph T100, the quote Cinderella bike of the Bonneville range. And after 10 months of ownership, these are my findings and the reason why after 10 months I decided to get rid of it. Now, I don't want to sound like somebody who's Triumph phobic. Far from it. My first motorcycle was a Triumph back in 1975, and over the years I've owned a further 14 Triumphs. I've actually got 2 Triumphs in the garage at the moment, and whenever I consider buying a new bike, it's always Triumph I turn to first. Call it brand loyalty, call it what you will, but I was sold on Triumphs from a very early age. When John Bloor resurrected the Triumph name in the early 1990s, I was over the moon. The products that he brought out were exceptionally well made and have stood the test of time. So what is it that I don't like about the T100? Well, having owned the T100 for 10 months, for me there is one glaring feature that makes the bike very frustrating to ride. One of the greatest virtues of a modern classic or a retro bike should be its rideability. These bikes are not designed to hit scary speeds. They're not designed for getting your knee down. They're not designed for lofting the front wheel. They are designed to be pleasant, to convey you where you want to go without any fuss. When you ride a modern classic, you sacrifice sports bike handling and acceleration for rideability. And this all-round rideability is where they should truly excel. Unless you add a screen of some description, their cruising speeds are limited to roughly 70 miles an hour. Anything above that becomes wearisome. Well, that's fine, because 70 miles an hour in the UK at least is the national speed limit on the fastest roads, i.e. motorways and dual garageways. Adding a touring screen might take your maximum cruising speed up to 80 miles an hour. Most modern classics aren't going to go much faster than that. That's not that they won't, and they may be a lot of fun to do so, but most of these bikes will seldom see 90 miles an hour. Maximum speed has become largely academic. So in real terms, what has become important is how these bikes will perform up to 80 miles an hour. So how does the Triumph T100 perform up to 80 miles an hour? Well, there's plenty of acceleration in it, plenty of torque. It's a reasonably smooth engine. It handles reasonably well. It brakes reasonably well. It's very economical. On a recent trip to Swindon from Swansea, the computer was telling me that I averaged 78 miles per gallon. And that was cruising down the motorway at a steady 70 miles an hour. I've read on several forums from owners of T120s that they wouldn't consider a T100 because you need that extra 6th gear. That extra 6th gear that makes the T120 lope along at hardly any revs at all. Well, I would argue that if a bike is turning out 78 miles per gallon at 70 miles an hour, that's if the computer's to be believed, then there can't be much wrong with top gear. I'm sure if top gear were a bit higher, 70 mile an hour cruising may seem a little more relaxed. But I couldn't argue with the Triumph engineers. If the bike is turning out that kind of economy, then I think top gear is spot on. I said in a previous video, comparing the T100 to the Interceptor, that the Triumph didn't need a 6th gear. Perhaps it does, but it doesn't need a higher gear than the gear it's already got. Interestingly, the top gear ratio on the T100 is exactly the same as the Speed Twin and the Thruxton. It's only the T120 that gives you that extra overdrive gear. What the Speed Twin 1200 and the Thruxton 1200 give you with their 6-speed box are closer ratios, and this highlights the problem with the T100. In my opinion, the T100 doesn't need a higher top gear. What it does need are the 6 gear ratios that the Speed Twin 1200 and Thruxton 1200 share. If you already have a T100 and you're more than happy with it, then I would advise you not to listen any further, because once I pinpoint this problem to you, it's going to become glaringly obvious to you every time you ride your bike in an urban environment. Like I say, I watch many bike reviews on YouTube, and only one has pinpointed this problem, and it was actually pinpointed on a T120. Now, I haven't ridden a T120 since I test rode one before buying the T100, but I imagine that this problem will also apply to the T120, as I think the T120 has the same ratios as the T100 but with the extra gear added on. So this is a final warning. If you own a T100 and you're happy with it, don't watch this any further, because I'm about to pinpoint the problem. And that problem is that at 30 mile an hour the T100 is between gears. It's neither at home in 2nd or 3rd gear. And what I found when riding my T100 was that I was constantly changing between 2nd and 3rd gear. Now, my T100 was a 2023 version, which had been revised in 2020 for Euro 5. And I'm wondering if this may be the root of the problem. In 2021, the T100 gained the all-black engine, but also lost several kilos in weight from within the engine. Maximum power was increased from 54 to 64 brake horsepower, and although maximum torque remained the same at 80 Newton meters, it moved a further 500 revs up the rev range to 3,750. Now, I wonder if these changes have been detrimental to the T100. The 2023 T100 has a sweet spot at 3,000 revs. Above 3,000 revs, the engine is a peach, but below it, it's fairly lackluster. It's not lacking in power or torque, but the engine is nothing like as sweet as it is above 3,000 revs. As a consequence, I found that I was permanently changing gear to keep above 3,000 revs. This is tiresome on a bike of this type, and I know that there are better Triumph twin engines out there. Lately I've been riding a 2019 Thruxton Classic 1200, and despite its much higher compression ratio, this engine is happy to drop even below 2000 revs and pull cleanly. It has no sweet spot, it's sweet everywhere. Now of course the 2019 Thruxton engine was Euro 4, and I would be very interested to know if the pre-Euro 5 T100 suffered from the same shortcomings as my 2023. Just to clarify, the 2023 T100 that I had was completely standard. There were no alterations to the exhaust or airbox or anything else. And that would also apply to the Thruxton 1200 Classic that I'm riding at the moment. That's completely standard. It hasn't had a D-cat, an X-pipe or anything of that nature. It took me quite a while to identify this shortcoming in the T100 from 2023. I certainly never picked it up on the test ride. It's one of those things that you learn by riding a bike over a period of months. I was never entirely happy with the T100, and it took me quite a while to establish why that was. Having identified the problem, riding the bike became more and more frustrating. It may not sound such a big issue, but think about how much time you spend riding at 30 miles an hour. If you have a Euro 5 T100, please let me know in the comments if you find your bike the same. If you have a Euro 4 T100, I would be interested to know what you think of yours. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Beauty, they say, is in the eye of the beholder. And no one can deny that the T100 is a beautiful machine. There is a jewel-like quality to its fit and finish. I had fallen in love with the tangerine and pale blue paintwork when I'd first seen it on a 1959 Bonneville. When I saw this particular bike advertised for sale 300 miles away, it cost me a 600-mile round trip to pick it up. Not everybody likes the black engine and the stainless steel exhaust, but I was drawn to those on a practical level. I reasoned that they would take less looking after than the chrome and polished alloy on my Royal Enfield Continental GT. After 10 months of ownership, deciding to trade the bike in for a 2019 Triumph Thruxton was a bitter pill to swallow. But I know from riding the Thruxton how good these Triumph twins can be, and the T100 in Euro 5 form was not. Aside from the issues that I've mentioned, the T100 is a great bike. I don't know if these issues can be tuned out with a remap or a D-cat or anything else, but I'm a firm believer that a machine should be right leaving the factory, and this bike, to my mind, is not right. Above 3000 revs, this is a fantastic machine. Below 3000 revs, it's pretty mediocre, and I feel it should be so much better. So goodbye T100, hello Thruxton Classic. I hope to be able to bring you a very positive report on the Thruxton Classic soon. After a month of ownership, I'm still very impressed.